Another exposed database leaves 20 million plus records open on the internet.
Hey, Jonathan, so I understand you're looking at a story about another database that was exposed on the internet?
Yeah, this one was actually interesting because this company, VoxOx, I apologize if that's not how you say it, but that's how I heard it. Mm-hmm. What they do mainly is that they process VoIP and SMS data for other companies.
Okay.
So they had this database that was almost real-time processing all the requests for forwarding SMS to the cell phone company. So, like, let's say you're, I don't know, company X, and I need to send you a text. Well, I don't have the capability of that, so I hired this company.
Right, so they're like a third party as an SMS gateway.
Correct.
To send to people.
Right.
Okay.
So, and actually from this, I didn't realize there were multiple layers. So I could be a company X paying company Y, which then
uses
pays them
company Z
as a gateway.
Right. Yeah, I read that too.
So in this case, they had an Elasticsearch database that was processing all this almost near real time, but their Kibana front end was open. No passwords, no anything.
Completely to the internet. So all you had to do was find it, and then you could start rummaging through it.
And it was actually, the researcher found it in Shodan. So it was already processed by Shodan, and so who knows who else had access to it?
Right.
It's unclear as to who else had reached this database. It's unclear if anybody had downloaded it. It's unclear if the information on that website was used in any nefarious activities.
TechCrunch saw that there were about 20 million plus messages processed this year alone.
Jeez.
And the company, I think, has been around for a few years, so we don't know how many people had access to it for how long. And one of the interesting things was that while TechCrunch was doing the research, they realized, wait, some of these are actually two-factor authentication codes.
Right.
And
so just kind of scrolling to this picture here. So it's got a one-time PIN.
Right.
6791373 to reset some Microsoft account.
And some of that, for the most part, they usually expire, but they don't they expire for maybe 5-10 minutes, right? It's not something quick.
Right.
So if you're looking at a real-time database of this data, that you have a window where you could have, gotten someone's one-time authentication code.
Right.
And I think that's probably the biggest piece of the story here, right? Like a big security vulnerability, because banks use, I don't know if banks use this service, but banks use.
But that's a very typical type of scenario.
Here's a code, log into your account.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to target someone and it goes through here, I mean, there's all amounts of possibilities. So anybody potentially using two-factor authentication to log in now has their temporary code in this database that is almost real time, so an attacker could potentially see what their code is. While they think they're protected, they're no longer protected.
Like you said, especially if it's like a banking scenario or something, a lot of us, we always talked about SMS is not necessarily the most secure out-of-band type of authentication because, it can be passively intercepted in a lot of ways, depending along the way. And this is one way right here, in that it's mishandled when it's put in here. So, I know at my bank, I have to log in with a password. Then it wants to send me a one-time PIN code.
Correct.
And so if I'm a bad guy and I get the login ID and password and I need that one-time PIN code, but I know if I just go here and just keep refreshing, looking for where phone number equals, John's phone number, boom, I can get into his bank account and start transferring money out.
Yeah.
That's pretty unnerving to me.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very unnerving. In addition to that, though, there's also in the articles stated that passwords were actually in plain text there. And temporary account passwords, like if you've got if you hit a reset password link, some companies, some websites will tell you, well, here's a temporary one to your phone number or email address. It was just sitting there, plain text for all.
And some will send a link that as long as you click the link, it just resets the password. It assumes that you're that person. It's like this big long crypto link in there. I don't know if they do that in SMS, but I've seen that, and that always worries me too, because if that gets intercepted, you could take over somebody's account that way too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's a good story. I appreciate you bringing it. It's very interesting. I didn't know that this is how a lot of these companies do their SMS processing.
I learned a lot from that too.
Yeah.
So the important takeaway from this is if you are a firm whose business model it is to control that information and transmit it, it'd be a good idea to make sure that information isn't openly available on the internet, as this case shows that it was.